an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 14 and 15. In these episodes, we get to see exactly what Captain Kuro can do. And it's pretty much like an aggressive jig. And it's almost magic. And it's called the Pussyfoot Maneuver. And frankly, that's a wrap for me. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. So, y'all, I am just so... I said this in my, post when I sent out the link to come to the crowdcast for this episode. But I keep thinking that this show has, peaked for me. And I don't know why I think that, because it's been on for, 20 years. So I'm certain that it just continually does this kind of thing. But I keep thinking, okay, that's about as good as we're ever going to get. And then they do some other shit, and I'm like, I was so wrong. So, Gabriella says, I have so many issues with that translation, Pussyfoot. Gabriella, I don't know if you hadn't heard that before, but pussyfooting is a term that I have heard used a lot from when I was a child. I remember watching soccer with my parents and my mother saying, oh my God, they are just pussyfooting around. Will you fucking get to the point? Because they were just passing. And that was probably one of the first times I ever heard it. I was 6, I think, or so. And since then I've heard it a lot of times. So I think that for me, it worked extra well because I have heard that term in context many times, and so the joke just landed for me completely. However, if I hadn't, I would probably be feeling a way about it also. I know that I've said pussyfooting and other people have been like, what? So, yeah. But, I don't know. Maybe you have heard it before and you just don't like the term, which is certainly, reasonable. It's one of those things that I really think it's meant to be oh, you're like a cat because you're so skittish. That's how I think about it, is you're tiptoeing around and being really, cautious. Doesn't exactly mean what it does in terms of what it is that Captain Kuro is doing, but that doesn't matter because it works with the cat motif, so I can totally forgive that it really isn't the same thing at all. And I'm just all about it. This cat motif, it's such a rich vein, and I really love... Bernadette says, I know it as meaning, quote, beating around the bush, so it's a little weird here. Beating around the bush probably works. That's fairly close to what I'm thinking of, being not getting to the point. My mother was talking about with a soccer game, So I could see that. That makes sense. I never really thought about it in those terms. I always thought about it as being a little bit too delicate, but beating around the bush, I always picture as you're being super passive aggressive and you're afraid to get to the point. And it's a very small difference. So really, they practically mean the same thing. So that works. And the beating around the bush plus pussy, I mean, I see it. I get it. So anyway, I think that this is so funny. I have compared this show to the movie The Warriors already because of the whole gimmick of every gang having their own, theme. And so far, I feel like the cat one has been the most fun because I love Buggy the Clown, but there is something about he's the only one that it feels like fully embraces that, and everybody else is like, there's like weird outfits that are sort of clowny, but they're the thing that they say is like, do it flashily, and that's not really clown-like. It just is like, there's bits that are, and there's things that aren't. The cat thing feels the most cohesive, and I feel like maybe that's going to be something that the show continues to do, is that the more pirate gangs we meet, the more intense they're going to get with like developing the thematic elements of it. And I am just dying to think I want to sit down and brainstorm a bunch of different pirate crews and figure out what other themes they could come up with. I mean, the list is frankly endless, but I was listening, those of you who are looking for a great show to sort of zone out to that isn't super serious, my favorite comfort listening podcast is The Complete Guide to Everything. And they just recently did an episode on man caves. And they neither of them have a man cave. They're not really interested in them either, but they covered the topic out of interest in the theory behind them. And one of them found a list of like themes for your man cave for the decor. And as he was listing it, I just kept thinking these would be really good pirate crew themes for One Piece, because some of them, like, there's really weirdly specific ones, like the list that he found, I don't know what random website it was on, but one of the themes was Florida, which, like, okay, I mean, how about just like Disney or beach? What is Florida? What is the theme? Oranges? Is that, but setting that aside, there were things like rock and roll or Hollywood. And I'm like, I was sort of stopping and being like, does Hollywood make sense in this universe? And I was like, you know what? Sure. They don't give a fuck. Like, whoever is deciding on what the crews are on this show, they clearly are just like, whatever we say exists. So yeah, Hollywood's definitely a thing. Movies are a thing. Movie stars are a thing. Cameras, action. And they could say that and I'd just be like, well, okay. I'm not putting up an argument about it. That's what I think is my favorite thing about this show, is because they're so fast and loose with everything. I feel like I'm just rolling with it. You know, it's not like it can get with other stuff where I sort of get stuck on something and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Wait, what? They just are so like nonchalant about throwing a whole new concept out there that I can't get caught up on it because they're already moving on without me. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess this is what's happening now. So yeah. Anyway, let's see. Bernadette says, well, we all know Florida Man. That would be, honestly, if it was a Florida Man themed pirate crew, that would be the scariest shit. Because they would not be afraid of anything. They wouldn't be afraid of anything. You hear me, guys? Because in order to have fear, you have to have some, like, intelligence surrounding that. But the thing with, like, the Florida Man trope is they do stupid shit because they don't know enough to be afraid of the consequences of a thing. So they'll, you know, the Florida Man, for example, is somebody who would hold the, like, dynamite in his teeth and light it and just be surprised when his whole face falls off. Like, genuinely, like, what? Who could have seen that coming? Anyway, oh my God. Bernadette says, I feel Luffy is very much the Florida Man. Don't you dare, Bernadette. How dare you? I mean, to a degree, I could see what you mean, though. I'm not that mad at that. I feel the loose feeling of One Piece, also needed for such a long show. Or I like the... Oh, you mean I like the loose feeling. Got you. Yeah. That's, I think, what really makes it. You know, I feel like if you told me in a vacuum about some of the tropes in this show, I would be like, oh, that does not sound great. But then as I'm watching it, I'm just so here for it. And they just do such ridiculous shit, guys. For example, something that I will never... I watched this episode twice. and I laughed so hard both times, is the moment where Luffy and Captain Kuro are fighting, and Captain Kuro jumps on Luffy's arm and then runs up his arm to attack him, which is just so fucking hilarious. Like, I just love it. It's the first time that we've seen his stretchiness really be any kind of liability at all. And the fact that it's just like, oh, this is your arm? Well, I consider this pretty much a street to your face. Good thinking. That's, in my opinion, that's solid battle tactics that I wouldn't have thought of. So, good for you. Guys, this show is so much fun. Okay. So, let's start from the beginning here. Again, skipping the intro. Oh my god. I was going to say start from the beginning, but really, there's something that I have to tell you guys. So, Owen made me watch, and then once there was like a moment that I was like, you know what? There might be spoilers in this. He turned it away from me so I could still hear it. Owen made me watch/listen to the original American dubbed rap intro. And it's just about the worst thing that's ever happened. Except for, guys, look this up. So, those of you who have heard of Cameo, you're going to get it, but I'll explain it for those who don't. Cameo is a service that you can go purchase like a 15-second or however long message from a celebrity. And there's all kinds of like the tiers of celebrities vary wildly. You've got like reality show stars that charge $20. And then there's something that I did for Owen's birthday, his 30th, where I got Lando Calrissian to speak to him for his birthday and wish him a happy birthday and do some Lando quotes. That was way more expensive. But somebody paid Gilbert Gottfried to read the rap. And you guys, he reads the whole thing. And it takes forever. And it is excruciating. Owen sent it to me. I sat through the whole thing and I just couldn't. I really want to like speak to Gilbert Gottfried and be like, did you like practice beforehand and realize how incomprehensible this was before you started? Did you just go ahead and start it and then in the middle you were like, wow, this is nothing. This doesn't make any sense. But you had been paid and so you're just going to do it. Have you seen One Piece? And you were like, oh, I'll definitely do that because I know exactly what this is. I just want to know like the details behind his impressions from being hired to do this. And I really want to know how much it cost because this shit is like, Owen showed it to me because somebody sent it to him over the past like couple of days. So it's definitely circulating wildly. Yeah, see, Kyle in the chat mentioned Gilbert Gottfried right off the gate. So he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Guys, what is that rap? What is that? Why is it? This show deserves better. Has anybody done a proper One Piece rap? Like, really? I need to just get the taste of that bullshit out of my mouth. Just point me in the direction. As long as it doesn't have spoilers. Anyway, okay. So I just had to mention that because it was an experience. So, this next episode, 14, is Luffy back in action. Miss Kaya's desperate resistance. So, Florian had mentioned to me to like not read the titles, which I'm not doing. But I did find out another thing that I don't understand about the way they're handling the plots of this. So I'm avoiding the intro cards so that I don't get spoiled. I skip the whole theme song so that I don't get spoiled. But I wasn't ready. I had always just clicked to play the next episode, and I let it play out through the end song, which I really like the song that plays at the end of the show. I probably should go find that. But they go from the end credit song into a next time on before the next episode even starts, which is fucking what Doctor Who does, which I find just, it's inexplicable. Why are you doing this? And Owen said that a lot of anime does this, and they just like outright spoil huge plot points. I managed to like skip it before too much got spoiled, but it was really annoying. Why? Why do they do that, guys? Ugh. Anyway, so this episode, what I think works for me so well about this whole trio of episodes where they are on this like hillside / the beach is that it is so clearly mapped out, and we stay in exactly the same place throughout, so that our sense, this is something that I've talked about on other shows, and I stand by it as like a big factor for me. If you have an action like set piece, but the audience doesn't have a great sense of the space that you're in and a sense of place in the, like, within the fight, it's less interesting to watch, because they could do anything and you just have to accept that that object was in the room, or that that hallway is there, or that that window is there, whatever. And this was a major thing for me in the final season of Game of Thrones, where we barely explore Winterfell as a castle and see the way that anything is set up. So when there's major fight scenes, you have no idea where anyone is in relation to anyone else. And so it just feels like anybody could turn up at any moment, or anybody could be so far away they can't help their friend. And you just have to accept it because you don't know how any of it's set up. And I find that to be like frustrating and uninteresting. And because this whole thing, it takes place in this tiny beach with this one like strip of road up to the hill, it's so confined that it makes it way more interesting to watch, because one person can like guard this entry to the town, and it makes it so much more tense, I think, because it's all possible for it to like ride on one person, and that's very believable. And it's funny because this show is so fast and loose, it shouldn't matter that much that they make this feel believable. But I feel like it does. It does matter, and it worked really well for me. I just thought that the whole sense of this was, it only worked because they had confined themselves to this tiny area. Because what happens is pretty much, and there may be other fights that this happens in that I won't feel it works at all, but what happens throughout these two episodes is that basically people sort of take turns fighting, and then once somebody's like bit of plot is over, we accept that those two characters just stand and watch mouths agape as a different fight begins. And I feel like I wouldn't buy it, except for the fact that we are in this like long, narrow area where I could see getting distracted. I could see stopping and being like, wait, what's going on? And when in the end, Captain Kuro is like 5 minutes, that added like so much. I loved the periodic check-ins where he's like 3 minutes left. It was great. So we are still at the beach. We've got all of the pirates that are like backing up Jango, but he, you know, they're not really like doing anything, even though they could rush the area. Everyone's sort of relying on the Meowbin brothers. Nami is down still, and she winds up getting up again later, but she looks like she's in bad shape. Later on, it seems like she's more okay than I thought. And the Meowbin brothers are quaking in their boots at the sight of Captain Kuro at the top of the hill. Zoro is looking over his shoulder at Kuro because, like, reminder, I don't know that he knows what's going on here. And And later on, when he sees the way that Kuro fights, he gets a little bit worried. And anytime that Zoro is worried, I'm worried. That's pretty much like my rule of thumb for this show. The only person that I feel like has any grounding in common sense in this crew is Zoro. Luffy just doesn't in any way. Like, Luffy, there's, like, what even is there to say? Nami is just, like, fucking greedy and money hungry in this way that I find very endearing and actually really like. But it's certainly not, being, like, heroic is not her bag. She wants the bag. That's what she wants. And then there is Usopp, who I suspect is going to become like a crew member. And he is so like pure-hearted that I consider him to be the idealist out of the crew. But Zoro's the practical, grounded one, which is ironic because he's like kind of the best fighter. I feel like I want to say Luffy's the best fighter because he's so OP, but he is so bonkers and unpredictable that I can't rely on him. He's the clincher that you bring out when you're just like, all right, well, I really didn't want to destroy this entire house during the course of this fight, so I tried to have a neat one-on-one fight, but clearly y'all are gonna make me just, like, bring a bulldozer out, so Luffy, get over here. Like, he's the guy that is TNT, and it's just, except once you've brought him into the fight, shit's gonna just be a goddamn mess, right? Like, that's just the vibe I get from him all the time, is we're bringing him in now that it looks like there's no other way out. He'll blow a hole in the wall for all of us. But we do have to find a way to get him down for the count throughout most of the fight because he's OP. So he's asleep for like the majority of this section. Eventually, Nami wakes him up by stepping on his face and he gets so mad. And I find it so funny because, like, yeah, I understand that maybe getting your face stepped on doesn't make you, like, doesn't feel good. But you got a rubber face. And even if you hadn't had a rubber face, I wouldn't have really been mad at her for waking you up that way. But since you do, I care even less. So just calm down. But he's still asleep underneath that figurehead at the base of the hill. Usopp is up at the top of the hill and he is watching as the captain basically ridicules his crew for the fact that they have not managed to get past this tiny, scrappy little band. I'm going to jump ahead a little on and talk about Captain Kuro as a whole. So first of all, my personal favorite thing about this pair of episodes is finding out that there is a reason for him lifting up his glasses like that. Super unexpected. I just thought that this was like a weird, like, tick. But it turns out that this is something that he used to do a ton because he always had those knife gloves on. And it turns out they are indeed just gloves. And that Jango recognized the motion and that it kind of creeped him out to see it again when he had spent so long away from the captain. Guys, I don't know why that's so satisfying to me, but I just love when there's like a little thing that just seems strange, but I'm willing to just sort of like give up on and not really think about too much. And then it turns out that, oh no, that actually is like meaningful. And it's not even meaningful. It's just, oh no, there's a reason, you know, it's not just some random shit. Not that this show doesn't also do random shit, but I thought that that was like such a nice touch. And it really is the sort of thing that people have these gestures, and it can be because of something physical that restrains them, or it can just be, sometimes you'll see somebody echoing a gesture that their parent always made. And it's unclear whether or not it's on purpose, but it can be so wild, you know, to like see a relative who they do something in the exact same way, or they have the same tilt of the head and tone of voice or whatever as a person that has passed away, for example. And you just have a moment of, oh my God, wow. I just like saw my grandmother standing there like that. Something she would have said, the way she would have said it, and how she would have like gestured when she said it. And this moment of having not seen somebody for a while, and then they do a thing like that. I really liked this as just a small character moment where Jango was like, oh my God, that really gave me chills to see. I was like, I buy that, actually. And let's see. Florian says, that's something Oda is good at. Small things that are meaningful. Yeah, I am here for it. I always, it's like I said, it wouldn't have like bothered me if it wasn't meaningful. It would just be sort of strange. But the fact that it pays off at all, I really appreciate it. And I love that, like, Jango, in the midst of basically getting mocked by Kuro, has the fucking guts to be like, you're the one who said that letting the kids go wouldn't cause any problems. Like, tries to sort of turn it around on Kuro and be like, well, you said it would be fine. And Kuro is like, no, I guess I did say that. The only thing I didn't count on was you guys' feebleness. Feeble is such a good word. I love that. So, when he says this, the two Meowben brothers essentially are like, them's fighting words. And they make a pretty solid point, it seems, initially. Their assertion is, we've been out here on the high seas fighting and pillaging and killing, and you've been chilling in this goddamned mansion wearing your suit and getting 3 squares a day and a bed. And I'm pretty sure we could take your ass now, because I am willing to bet you are out of practice. And, that's not a bad argument, but they are very, very, very wrong. So this is when we get to see the pussyfooting for the first time, because they come charging up the hill at him. It's an amazing, the charge, you guys, it takes so long. Y'all, I'm getting ahead of myself. So they come charging up. Kuro does his pussyfooting thing. And then we see this, like, bag that had been on the ground that was, I think, what he was carrying his gloves in. Is that correct? Because I had seen him carrying it out last episode, and I was like, what is that? But it is like shredded to bits because they attacked that by accident instead of him. And then when they turn around, he is behind them. And I should mention, we get to watch each individual little sheath fall off every single individual knife attached to his gloves. Florian says, yes, that's where they were. Okay. There's something super hilarious to me about the fact that they each have a sheath. It makes sense. You're not going to carry them around in a bag when they could just shred the fucking bag. But I definitely, I just was like, that feels like it would be pretty inconvenient, actually. Evidently not. They just slide off when you need them to slide off. So, this is when we see Zoro beginning to sweat a little bit. When did he get behind them and those weapons? And I was just like, oh, I don't like the fact that Zoro is feeling insecure about this right now. Meanwhile, the two Meowben brothers just have caught up on the fact that he is behind them. It took them a second to even realize. They turn and then he disappears again. And like I said, it's essentially magic. And that's fine. So this is when we see that what's-her-face, Nami, is doing a little bit better than we thought. And she decides that she is going to toss Zoro back his blades. For some reason, Jango doesn't even make a move to stop her. Eventually, later on, he tries to hit her with one of those disc things. She calls them by a certain name, but I can't remember what they're called. But initially, like, her throwing the blades to Zoro, he doesn't, like, lift a hand to even slow her down. And when she turns and begins running towards Luffy, he takes a really long time before he decides to actually do anything. But for now, Zoro gets his blades back, and he is so excited because evidently, as the Meow Band brothers are heading towards him, they say, those swords won't help any. Your skill is still the same. And he says something like, you don't get it. Having 3 swords and knowing the 3-sword method are not the same thing. And I was like, oh, actually, okay, that's a pretty good bit. I like that. This is also when we see the first of the minutes go by. Kuro has said, you guys have 5 minutes. So we're at 4 minutes right here. Florian says, I think Jango is not much of a fighter. He doesn't seem like that, so he's inexperienced. Yeah, I guess it's like more that I would just expect him to have a gun or like a knife or anything that to even make it seem like he made an attempt, even if he's not good at it. But he's just sort of stands and watches her and is like, what are you doing? In this very passive way that I was like, what good are you, dude? Like, why are you even in charge? So this is when Zoro takes them down pretty easily in one swipe because of the 3-sword method. They go down. All of the pirates at the bottom of the hill are just like, oh my God. That really took no time at all. And then I love when Zoro turns around and the Captain Kuro says to him, one of them's still alive. Your method's actually kind of sloppy. And Zoro turns around and is like, motherfucker. I found that really funny. Although he does say something about how like his like tough layer of fat kept him alive. I was like, pretty sure that's not how that works. I don't know. Maybe it is though. Because you could cut somebody who's fat. Like if you cut me in the stomach, I've got a pretty thick layer of fat there. So if you cut somebody who's thin, like an inch deep, you're getting towards organs. But you cut me an inch deep, and good luck, buddy. You haven't even fucking scratched the surface yet. So maybe that's true. But regardless, this is when Jango decides that he is going to try and he's going to hypnotize Siam? Is it? Or what's the other one? I keep wanting to call him Butch. Is it Butchie? He's going to hypnotize him to become this like hulking brute, which Zoro is genuinely concerned about. You see him just be like, what the fuck? It should be mentioned that we never really see a fight resulting from this hulking brute in a way that felt like he was actually taken advantage of in any real way. He's sort of brought out as like a frightening, a potential threat that doesn't materialize into much. And let's see. So yeah, Zoro gets his swords again. What happens when he's powered up like this? He could already crack the ground apart. And as he begins to like stomp towards Zoro, this is when Nami runs off to wake Luffy up. So because of Luffy waking up, and he catches the friggin' thing in his teeth and breaks it. Oh my God. That pretty much distracts everybody at this point. So yeah, Butchie, there's no time to think. Kill that Haramaki bastard and I'll handle that weird kid. And it's very clear from the way that Jango is sweating that he knows he is not going to be able to handle this weird kid. So at this point, Kaya comes up and she gets jumped by Usopp in order to keep her from getting killed. This, for me, was definitely the most tedious part of all of these episodes because I just don't give a fuck about Kaya as a person, and her coming down here with a gun, but like not being actually willing to do anything and so easily tricked out of her weapon. It's just not fun to watch. It's just very boring. I will say, though, I love... So Kuro gives us the, backstory. Kaya wants to just give him her fortune and have that be the end of it. And he is essentially like, I mean, sure, if that's all I wanted and I was planning to go, sail away on the high seas, maybe that would work. But what I want, and this was my question last episode, was what's his intention here? What he wants is basically to retire from being a pirate and pretend to be a respectable person and live in the same town with the same level of respect and trust that he has been enjoying up to this point. So her death is a requirement in order to keep the secret so that he can go on living the way that he does. I'll be honest, you guys, though. I don't really understand why his crew had to be here for this. It feels like this could have been just a him and Jango deal. And Jango just, because, I was saying this before, he's really counting his chickens before they've hatched. He's spilling his plan to a manservant in the house and killing him and leaving the body out when he doesn't actually have the will with Kaya's signature or anything on it yet. He's put 3 years into this plan. You really think that he would take it a little bit more seriously. But the whole deal here with him involving the pirates when the deal is that he doesn't want to be a pirate anymore. I was like, well, then why are they even, you are the one that told them to come and you didn't actually need them. What are you doing? It doesn't really make sense. But regardless, that's the plan. And there's a pretty good bit where Kaya is holding the gun up and he's talking about, remember all the good times we had together? And he's really plucking at her heartstrings in this way that disarms her, literally. And then he, once he has the weapon, he backs away and was like, yeah, that fucking sucked. I had to kiss your ass. It was pathetic. You're a kid. And I am a badass. And you know how excruciating it was to pretend that I liked you and that I gave a fuck. Because I definitely don't. And I found that shit really funny. The whole delivery of it and maybe the way that it was translated, it just felt cold-blooded. And I really, really enjoyed it. And we also get to see via the flashbacks in the next episode, but I'll talk about it now, the way that he faked his own death. So he had this guy get hypnotized by Jango to pretend that he was the pirate, that he was Captain Kuro. I don't know if it was just me, you guys, but the animation on the face of the dude that they choose to pretend he's Captain Kuro looked so similar to the kid from the first couple episodes that winds up joining the Marines. And this guy had been a Marine, that I thought for sure it was supposed to be oh, time passed and that kid grew up and he was a Marine and then he got executed. And I was like, that's rough. And it was not until a little bit later when it doesn't really get mentioned at all. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure it's just that the animation makes him look very similar, but it's not the same dude at all. And plus, I don't think that much time is meant to have passed, For a second, I was like, well, maybe. And then I stopped. I thought, no, that doesn't work with the timeline or anything. But yeah, so he has somebody that he hypnotizes to be Captain Kuro, and he has a guy that he hypnotizes to pretend that he is the one who caught Captain Kuro. I'm so curious as to what he does in his you hypnotize somebody to say that they were the one who captured Captain Kuro. But if somebody questions them about how they did it, what will they say? Will they make something up because they realize once they are asked the question that they don't remember and they panic and they just decide on a story because that's easier than facing the fact that they can't remember? Or is that the one that's or is it, I'm going to fill in the blanks automatically because my subconscious, because, it's sort of like a dream where in a dream, suddenly things begin to fall into place because you have dream logic and it just decides that, well, if this is where we're going, here's what had to have happened. Florian says the one who caught Kuro turned out to be Morgan, the axe guy. Oh. Wow, I did not pick up on that at all. Shit. Is that mentioned? Or is that like... And what? He caught Kuro and got, I think promotion. Oh shit. So he got a promotion for some shit that he didn't do. And is that the person that Kuro was leaning on his jaw? And so that's why he has like the metal jaw now? Oh, okay. That's pretty good. I like that. Wild. Look at it. It's all connected. But yeah, so that's how he like managed to sort of fake his own death. But apparently like his men don't realize that he's wanting to not be a pirate captain anymore. And y'all, can we just talk about the fucking audacity that this bitch is like, I decided I was done, so I'm done. I don't know what's so hard to understand about that, but definitely, like, we are not going to continue being pirates because I personally am tired of it. So I'm retiring, and y'all are going to all help me do that. And then I will definitely, like, just bail, and I'm going to use you all for my own ends up until that point. Wow. And the whole, like, I deserve some peace and quiet. Why? No, you don't. And what kills me is that, like, in the real world, this is how it fucking works. Genuinely, there are so many people who are horrific, exploitative, like, low-key murderous assholes. But they have the fucking, like, all of the resources at their disposal, and they get their cushy retirement in peace. They totally get it. And there's not a goddamn thing anybody can do about it. And it's tragic and I hate it. And Kuro just, I'm so mad about it. So, all right, let me refocus here. So the episode ends with Usopp like trying to step in again with Kaya. And of course, we have the Pussyfoot Maneuver. So he gets snuck up on by Kuro, who like sort of gets the drop from behind. And he's about to get his throat sliced into a million pieces when Luffy's fist just comes sailing out of fucking nowhere and sends the captain flying. And then we get this amazing still of Luffy. And it's like, it gives the illusion of being more detailed and an illustration for a second, but it really is just that there's extreme like shading and contrast. And he says, if you hate getting hit that much, I got 100 more punches for you, which is truly the lamest line ever. It doesn't even really work, but it's fine because Luffy can say what he wants because he's just who he is. So all of the pirates, again, they seem to just forget how totally outnumbered each of these people are. And the fact that Kuro is sort of like, he's made an enemy of his own men is the one thing that works. The fact that all of these pirates are trying to act like these four kids are a real obstacle, it wouldn't make a lot of sense except for the fact that Kuro calls them feeble and is basically like, you useless pieces of shit, I'm going to kill you all myself. So they don't have a lot of motivation to really be on his side in the way that I think he thinks they should be. And that works in splitting everything up. I should also mention, when we see Kuro like splayed out on the ground after getting hit, the length of the, like, knives is so much more dramatic. The knives just change length according to whatever they need for the scene, which is fine. But I just found it really funny that he could literally not hang his arms at his sides with the length that they are in this moment. He would have to hold his arms up at, like, right angles. And how fucking funny would that be? That would not be intimidating if you, like, saw somebody that otherwise they'd hit the ground. But anyway, so this is when the whole fight begins. Oh, before the fight though, the little kids who were following Usopp turn up, and they begin to beat the shit out of Captain Kuro. And they do not seem to, like, appreciate the danger they are in, and Kuro does not lift a hand to defend himself. And I swear to God, there is something about the sound effects that they use here. It sounds like somebody just holding, like, one of those kickballs, like a rubber kickball, and smacking it. That's the sound effect of them, like, beating up Kuro. And I don't know why, but it was so funny. Like, I just kept imagining them using actual toys to beat him up with, you know? And throughout this episode especially, because we're really getting to the end of a couple of major fights, and so we have a lot more of the, like, pauses, the shocked expressions. There's even, like, a kind of death scene. We have a lot of the staring at the camera and the making of mouth noises. Guys, I feel like it's a lot worse this episode than it has been previously. And there is one particular moment that is, it goes on for such a long time. I'm trying to track down the moment here, because we've got, definitely there's the moment with Usopp where he's trying to struggle to his feet. And that one goes on quite a while. I feel like last episode, the one with Butchie might be another one. Guys, do you ever think about what it's like to be in the studio with a person who is doing one of these voiceovers, and they get to this point and they just have to be standing there making these sounds? Because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it would be so awkward. I'm just gonna... Okay. Guys, I'm looking at the screen right now. And we've got Usopp struggling to his feet. Okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the sound for the full duration of what it is in the scene. And you guys just try to fucking, like, deal with it. Because you can't. I bet it's going to be the worst. And you're going to fast forward a little bit. Here it goes. And then he starts talking. Y'all, I can't deal with it. It's too much. And, like, as they're doing that, the camera's aware this is super boring, so they go to other characters who are watching him, but the sound is still playing. It's just so much, y'all. It's so much. It's really a lot. And even once he starts talking, I refuse to let you have your way anymore. And he steps forward. He fucking falls down again. He falls down, and then we get more. Damn it. I can't move. You must need so much ginger and lemon tea after you do this show. Because it's like 50% of people's lines when there is a fight scene. Do you think maybe... Here's a thought. What if there's one person who does all of it? And all the like voice actors are like, look, I get that you need that, but I can't injure my instrument like that. So y'all get some other voice actor to do a lot of all at once. And then you guys can just like mix it with whatever you need to up the treble or bass or whatever for each character, and just reuse the same like death sounds over and over again for everybody. Because I'll tell you what, I would not be able to tell. If they did it that way, sure. Like, who cares, you know? I pretty much tune that out as it is, as best I can, because it makes me so uncomfortable. So, yeah, they could get away with that. Gabriella says, isn't that what they do for The Walking Dead? Oh, man. That is the same sound. It didn't occur to me, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, my throat is a little sore, and I just did it for that, like 20 seconds? It felt like 5 minutes, but it was only like 20 seconds. Ugh, no thank you. So... This is like, poor Usopp, because he really is trying to stand up for what he believes in. But I do love him telling Kuro, you betrayed everybody. And Kuro is like, betrayed? No. Betrayal implies we were on the same side and I switched. I was never on their side. This was what I was intending to do the whole time. So no, I just tricked them. That's different. And I was like, it's a weird time to get pedantic about it, but you're not wrong. Okay, that's fine. So Luffy, meanwhile, is watching Kuro fucking like laughing over here. And he decides that, oh my God, I forgot. Zoro picks up Usopp and says, me and Usopp are going to chase that hypno freak. That a problem? Hypno freak. Why is that so funny? And he tells Usopp, it's going to be like way harder with you, but I need directions because he went into the woods and I have no idea where he's going. So as they walk past, Kuro, he rightfully is like, who told you y'all could leave? Now he says this, but he does not actually lift a hand to stop them. And Luffy just says, I did! And this is when we get the fight, followed by him literally running up Luffy's arm, which is just the best fucking thing. And he hurts Luffy's mouth, and that's the second time that's happened, because previously Luffy caught that like fucking killer boomerang frisbee in his mouth and complained that cut him a little bit. So I find it very amusing that he keeps getting like oral injuries. But yeah, Captain Kuro is looking like he's a little bit more of a match for Luffy than we all have seen so far, really, to be honest. And his men begin like cheering for him. Captain Kuro, look at you! Way to go! And Kuro is like, God damn it, can you not fucking call me that name? I am tired of this. Devising plans every day for you men who only care about mayhem. Oh my God. There is something so hilarious about this, that he's just like, he's like a community organizer who just doesn't feel appreciated in his time, you know? This is just a weird bit to just, you guys didn't see how much work I put into it. And were you grateful? No. You were just like, oh, who else are we going to kill? Oh, who else are we going to maim? Oh, what else are we going to steal? Meanwhile, I have this beautiful plan all laid out. I took days planning it. But you guys didn't even appreciate it. Didn't even notice. I made a map. I had a schematic. And you just went and did whatever the fuck you wanted. Like, I swear to God, that is so relatable. Honestly. Like, that, he's a control freak who's just like, well, nobody listens to me, so I guess I may as well just go be rich somewhere and live my life. Yeah, well, that is how it be, though. Like, we're trying to be a manager. Thankless task, you know? People want to be managed. They really do in their hearts, but they don't appreciate it because they also want to be in charge, even though they are bad at it. So you have to simultaneously learn how to manage people while acting like that's not what you're doing and that it's all their idea. It has a lot of resemblance towards like being a woman in a hetero relationship, especially for, like, if you look towards the past a little bit, where women, it was like frowned upon for us to be direct. It's still frowned upon, but we're making some progress. But in the past, it was much more about tricking a guy into thinking that he was the one in charge, when really it was like you, definitely, but you can't let them be aware that that's what's going on. Anyway, so this is when we get the flashback, and he wears this fucking, I don't know what to make of it, you guys. He wears this captain's coat. All right. It's such a weird, basically what it is he doesn't have his arms in the sleeves. Sort of like how a mobster in like a 50s movie would be portrayed, as just having like a big coat draped over their shoulders, but their arms aren't in the sleeves. And oftentimes it's like a fur coat, so it gives them this huge silhouette. And that's sort of what he's got going on here, except like he's got the very Captain Hook-esque like epaulettes. And this gives him a very hunchbacked sort of appearance, almost like the Siam, the Miaoben brother. And the whole look of him is just wild. Like, he already looks so crazy. And then to see what he looked like when he was captain, I was like, oh, you know what? I kind of see why people like followed this guy, because he is very physically impressive and intimidating. So yeah, this is when we see, like, you know, him framing some people and setting up this whole thing. And then we come back to the present, and he is grinning at Luffy, saying, my plan will not be disrupted, which really ties in with his whole I made plans and nobody appreciated it thing. He's like, I made this plan for retiring, and it's the last plan that I'm probably ever going to make, and I will be damned if you are going to ruin this one for me too, because it's my swan song. I need this, okay? Honestly, he feels like somebody who, if he did retire, he would become like the community organizer for the island, because he needs to be in charge of shit. He can't help himself. But he would pick something that's like, you know, he would be in charge of like the Christmas play every year. And maybe like if they had like a pumpkin patch with like one of those mazes built out of haystacks, he would be the guy to like set that up around the holidays, because he just needs to be doing things. But yeah, anyway, I'm all about it. He sucks, and I do not think he like deserves any of this, but I also kind of relate. I get that. I just need to be doing things also. You know. And him running at Luffy at the end here, because their fight continues. Luffy grabs this fucking boulder. And I appreciated that it's addressed in the script, because there's no reason that being a rubber person should mean that Luffy can lift this fucking boulder. Evidently, though, we're just meant to accept it, because the captain says, seems like you can do more than just stretch, as he sinks his claws into it. And Luffy says, that's right, I've toughened myself up to be a pirate. And then squeezes the boulder, and it just like almost crushes to half its size. He says, you're tired? You're not fit to be a pirate if having a name on the seas scares you. Which honestly was a pretty baller takeaway. It didn't even occur to me. But what Luffy's saying is like, bitch, you got famous and now you're fucking whining about it? I can't relate. That's literally all I want, is for everybody to know who the fuck I am because I am such a badass. And you're out here crying about it. Get over it. I was like, you also make a good point, Luffy. You know what? Because this is sort of like... I've talked a lot about how, like, I simultaneously want to be, like, famous, but I also am terrified of what that means, because then you have a platform where everything you say gets scrutinized and possibly taken out of context or whatever, and they're double-edged swords. And so Luffy's sort of like me now, looking at people who are also podcasters but have just, like, really made it big and are super famous, and I'm like... how can you fucking, like, complain? But then, I bet if I ever got to that point, I would feel this way too and be like, I'm done. This is too much. So, the episode pretty much ends with Captain Kuro's, like, claws being lodged in this boulder, and Luffy just saying, my ambition is greater than yours. We cut to a bunch of birds flying away, and then it's just to be continued, and that's the end of the episode, and we don't see what happens. I personally would be here for Luffy just chucking that boulder into the ocean, because Kuro's attached to it. So all you need to do is throw that into the water, and if he can't get free, he sinks like a fucking stone and drowns, and that's pretty easy. But I don't know. It feels like a lot of times on this show, we get sort of open-ended endings for our villains that allows them potentially, like, the wiggle room to come back sometimes. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, so that's the end of the episode. I'm over time, so I have to wrap. Thank you again very much to Florian for commissioning this. I feel like it should resemble a cat's back when they are angry. Oh, the epaulets, the jacket thing. That didn't occur to me, but I kind of like that. Okay. That didn't occur to me. Maybe that's why they're doing it with the other guy too. All right, guys. Well, thank you again, and I will be seeing you again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.